This is an excerpt from chapter 4 of 14 Stones. As long as Berig Orlon followed his orders, he would go home. He could follow orders. He'd done it all his life. Then, somehow, he and his fellow soldiers were out of the Emperor's palace and into the warm daylight. Berig felt as if he had been underground for hours. The sun dazzled his eyes. He would go straight to the great barracks, find the quarters assigned to him, and write to his wife and daughter. He would tell them everything Emperor Shurik had said about the reward he would have as long as he did this one last task. They'd only have to wait for him until spring. The Emperor knew exactly what Berig needed and wanted as clearly as if he were inside Berig's head. For an instant, barely a breath, it made Berig uneasy. He hadn't even applied for retirement before Anya's husband died. Emperor Shurik had known so much about him. But as young as Shurik was, he was wise enough to guess that a man of Berig's age might want some rest in his later years. An emperor should know such things. Berig shook off his thoughts and started towards the barracks. Someone gripped his arm. Silda Orlon. Berig glanced around. It was Silda Vassam. The rest of the group had gone off in different directions, pairs and threesomes chatting together, moving towards the barracks or the temple or the streets that went off the square. Berig realized that he didn't particularly want to be alone with this woman. Her gray eyes were dark and unfriendly, her mouth set in a tight line. Loose strands of her silvery dark hair straggled across her face in the breeze. You had to be polite to a fellow soldier. Yes, he said. Her grip on his arm tightened. Her eyes moved over his face as if she was looking for something. She had to be at least 10 years his junior, but something about her expression suggested that she carried anger much older than her age. For a heartbeat or two, he wondered if she really was a spy, and if by some impossible chance she had something on Berig now, though he couldn't imagine what. Then she said, her voice so low he had to lean forward to hear it, "You seem like a decent man." Her grip was so tight it hurt. "Are you going to do what he said?" It took him a moment to understand what she meant. His mind refused to accept it. Who would dare to disobey the Emperor's orders? She must have read his answer in his face. Silda Orlon. Her voice made him think of a finger braced on the trigger of a Vindula, Alaska rifle, ready to pull. The Emperor told us to kill men and women who haven't harmed him or us. He told us to kidnap their children. Berig swallowed. Her fingers dug into the gray fabric of his coat. It was treason to argue with or challenge any order of the Emperor's. Berig knew that. Knew he could bring punishment down on this woman here and now, but as he looked into her face, something held him back. Kill. Captive. Kidnap. You could not question orders. He said, "We're only leading the search parties." She laughed, a noise of raw disgust and rage. You heard what he'll do with the information we give him. Maybe she was a spy after all. Maybe she was testing him. Berig clung to the idea, though his gut told him it wasn't true, because he didn't want, with all his strength, he didn't want to hear what she was telling him. He said, The god Mesha has nothing to do with this. Blatant heresy. This is Shurik's decision. I know he thinks he bought you, but you could make a different choice. Bought him. Ice slid down into Berig's stomach. He should not listen to this. He should pull his arm free and walk away. Ask your conscience, Silda Orlon, if you still have one. Ask it what happens to children who see their parents murdered. Her angry stare drilled into him. Then she let go of his arm, turned on her heel, and disappeared into a knot of people moving across the square.